Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and my co-host today is the always funny and charming Ross the Boss. Our guest today, you might know him from his Comedy Central special, Last Comic Standing, America's Got Talent, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Let's welcome Ty Barnett.
Hey, how you doing? Can you guys good? We got it. Whoop, bop. Yeah. All right, there we go.
We're all good. It's good to see you, Ty. Now listen, you're a Midwest guy. I'm from Cleveland. You grew up in Chicago. How was that? Were you a big sports fan growing up? Take us through growing up in Chicago as a Chicago fan.
I grew up on the south side of Chicago, actually so much so that one of my old jokes used to be, I'm from Chicago, but I pay child support in Seattle. So, like, yeah. But growing up in Chicago, I will tell people this, if I still lived there, I would probably be about 15, 20 pounds heavier. I'd have really bad acne from all the sweets, and my lips would be really black from smoking Newports, because that's pretty much what a lot of people did in the neighborhood that I grew up in. But growing up there I was more so a football fan before basketball, like so Bears, so like I remember the Super Bowl shuffle and all that stuff, which in hindsight, you look back on it and you're like, oh, that was kind of cheesy. But at the time, it made total sense to have football players rapping. But then I moved to basketball, so became a Bulls fan. And I still would watch football every once in a while, but I became a realistic Bulls fan because we were getting our asses kicked by Detroit all the time. And so much so to where I remember the exact moment. Like there's very few places I could GPS my exact location, but I could tell you exactly where I was standing when the Bulls finally beat the Pistons in the NBA playoffs. So that's how big of
Where were you?
I was walking through the hallway of the original Pancake House, which is where I used to work. I was carrying a plate, like a cart of dishes. I had my headphones in, and I heard them make the call that the Bulls won. And I'm telling you, like, I could pinpoint exactly where I was standing right in the hallway at that moment. So yeah, so I held on to the Bulls for a while, but now I became a realistic basketball fan. So now I don't get as animated when they lose.
Well, you were spoiled for many years with Michael Jordan, and you had some great runs with Michael Jordan. I mean, 6 rings, and I mean, never lost in the finals. I mean, he is the GOAT. I don't care what Dr. Dan Ratner says, but Michael Jordan is the GOAT.
No. Hold on. I'm going on record. Michael Jordan is always the GOAT.
Okay, fine.
Has been and always will be.
Okay, I just try to set you up to embarrass you. But, Ty, you also served in the U.S. Army for a number of years. Thank you for your service, actually. Did that prepare you at all for stand-up comedy? Were you the funny guy in the platoon? I mean, walk us through. You joined the Army obviously because you wanted to serve your country. I get it, but did that help you being a comic?
How it did help me was, and this is gonna sound weird, but it helped me know what I didn't want to do long term because it was a lot of rules. And don't get me wrong, I was a really good soldier. But after a while, you're like, oh, okay, well, I don't know if I can continue to get up this early in the morning. And why am I running 2 miles? Just to run it. That's all we're doing? Okay. It was great when I had the energy. Me now, no. So it prepared me in the sense of knowing, well, let me tell you what one of the main things it helped me with is discipline. I will say that. So the discipline that I apply to being a comedian and performing and what goes into prep, and you know this from your days at the Tonight Show, when you're prepping for a set, you have to have a certain mindset for that. Like you have to know repetition. You got to be comfortable with the repetition. You got to get comfortable with the routine and the discipline that comes with going and working the set every night. I got to do the same jokes every night. I got to get the timing down. And when you guys were booking the show, like you guys would be so meticulous in your details. You're like, well, you said 4 times and you don't need that, take that out. So in that sense, it definitely helped me because every time I would get ready for any stage performance, I would follow the same routine that got me the success from previous sets. So in that sense, it definitely helped me because I learned to really focus.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that being a comedian, it probably takes a lot of discipline.
Oh my God,
it's
I work
really
harder now than I did before.
Yeah, but it's really interesting.
Do you remember your first joke, Ty? Do you remember going on stage for the first time and telling your first joke. Do you remember what the joke was?
I remember the club was the Seattle Comedy Underground, Pioneer Square. Rest in peace. It is no longer there, which is so sad. My first joke has something to do with small towns. And I think I said something like, man, how do these people come up with these names? Like, does their car just break down and they're like, okay, fuck it, we're here. And and I forgot whatever it was, how I worded the joke. It got for my very first time on stage, it got a really good laugh for my very first time telling it. The problem was I got cocky and I went on stage the next night thinking there was going to be the exact same type of reaction with the whole set. And as you know, it can vary from night to night.
You showed up as a different person there. If you show up as a different person, it's going to go differently. So what inspired you to get into stand-up in the first place?
What inspired me is watching people like Pryor, who is still my Michael Jordan. I know there are people that have come along since, but I'm sorry, bro. Like, I've done everything short of get a Pryor tattoo. That's so, which won't happen. My wife will not let me do that. She already don't like the posters that I have.
You're like a little kid. I actually saw a great interview recently with Richard Pryor on the Johnny Carson show. And he was about 40 years old. And the first thing out of Carson's mouth, which I was shocked he said this, but it was great TV. He said, so you have trouble with drugs and alcohol. Tell us about it. That's what Johnny said to Richard Pryor. I mean, this is like in the late 70s, early 80s. And Pryor didn't skip a beat. It wasn't like, oh my God, you said that to Richard. He had jokes about it. I mean, it was a setup, as you know, it was all set up, but that was the first line coming out. And he showed me why he is the GOAT when it comes to stand. I mean, for comedy, I mean, Pryor was on a different level. I mean, I was lucky enough to see him perform a bunch of times, but I mean, he was unbelievable. And can you imagine if he was sober? Can you imagine how great he would be?
Bro, let me tell you something. The thing about Pryor, and I remember watching, I think it was either Pryor Convictions or Omit the Logic. I think it was Omit the Logic, the special they did for him. The documentary they did on him, and looking at all of the stuff that dude came from, which would have broken a lot of people. A lot of people would have just broken them. To have a mom who was a prostitute, a grandma that ran a brothel, a dad who was in and out and was abusive when he was there, to go through the abuse he suffered, and to come out of that and not only be good at what you do, but be considered the greatest. Hey, bro, that's on like you said, on a whole nother level. So I know when I watched that and I heard like about all the different things that he had gone through, it kind of helped me I'm not gonna lie, put a lot of things in perspective. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. And there's some people that think like that too. Great. And I could just kind of power through stuff. So it's not just me. But the thing that inspired me about him wasn't just what he did on stage, it was the people that enjoyed him. And still to this day, that's why I tailor my stand-up to make as many different people laugh as possible. Because if you watch his acts, watch his performances, you see the people in the audience aren't just black, aren't just white, aren't just this and that. There's such a diversity in people that dug him and still dig him to this day. And that's what I gravitated towards. I'm like, man, look at this dude, bro. He's like making all these different people laugh. So that's another reason why I feel like he is the tippy top. And that's why, you know, he's still my inspiration for, like, in my studio, I have two important pictures in my studio that are right there. One is Pryor, who's actually doing this in the picture. And then another picture of New York, which is my favorite city. So I combine two energies in the same creative space. And that's, so that's why I still draw.
So let's keep on the topic of stand-up comics. And recently, Dave Chappelle got in trouble for making fun of the transgender audience. And first of all, you know my take on it. If you can't make fun of yourself, you shouldn't own a TV or cell phone, okay? I mean, you got to be able to make fun of yourself. I mean, people make fun of Jews, people make fun of white people, they make fun of all different types. So stand-up comedy, there's no like limitation of like, oh, you're transgender. Oops, I can't write a joke about you. And it wasn't even a bad joke. It It was a person's voice. What's your take on the cancel culture? What's your take on Chappelle? What's your take on stand-up comedy? Takes the whole U-turn in the past 5 years. It's got bad, Ty. It's got real bad, and I want to get your opinion on it.
I will say this. I got layers of opinions on it, and you know this from being being a booker and seeing all different types of jokes. So on one end, when it comes to cancel culture in general, and it's funny we're having this conversation because I was just defending Chappelle to another comedian earlier, a couple of days ago. When it comes to cancel culture, this is where I have a problem with lazy comedians. If you're lazy and you're just writing jokes and the joke doesn't have any depth to it, but it's just an offensive joke, I'm sorry, that's just lazy writing to me. And if you don't know how to write funny without just being like going, it's almost like if a person does a joke and the part of the joke is that he has to say fuck or the N word, like it has to be that. That's the only thing that makes this joke work. All right, well then that to me is a little different because, and you know this, to get jokes passed through standards and practices, you have to meet a certain criteria. And so it's almost like a rapper who puts out an album and it's a clean version of the album, and then they put out a dirty version. And then you listen to the clean album, you're like, that's just as good as this one. Why didn't you just release this one? So in that sense, that's what I have a problem with lazy comedians. When it comes to Chappelle, I didn't see a problem with it. I did not see a problem with what he said because what he said, one, is true. Two, you have to understand everyone's going to get offended by something today. Everybody. There's like I remember doing a show and all I said was, man, getting here was a bitch. That's all I said. As soon as I said that, an old lady stood up and walked out. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even call anyone a bitch. I just said getting here was a bitch. And so in that sense, yes, it's way too sensitive. It's way too sensitive, this cancel culture when it comes to because I remember somebody complained about Wanda Sykes and they said, well, I went to Wanda Sykes' show and all she did was talk about how much she hated Trump and how she was gay. And I'm like, it's Wanda Sykes.
Who'd you think you were seeing?
That's what she does. That you can actually look and see what she does. So I feel like anyone that says they're offended by something nowadays, as you said before, like either get rid of your phone or your TV because there's no way you can be shocked anymore. There's no way.
I mean, Ty, don't you think some people come in with an agenda to be offended? I really think some people do.
I know they do. I know a lot of people do, but that's my point is that if you're coming to see me perform, you say, well, I want to go see Ty Barnett. And let's say you've never heard of me before. You can literally Google Ty Barnett and you can go and see the type of shit that I talk about, the type of subject matter. And if you still come to the show, that's on you.
Right. Do you ever edit yourself now? Like, do you find yourself on stage being careful, or do you find that you go the opposite direction and just say, you know what, I'm going to be me? I'm just curious what your take is on that.
I have always chosen to just, not say always. When I first started, I thought I had to tailor myself. So to answer your question, in that when I first started in this business, I thought, okay, these are the jokes that people will think are funny. Fat jokes, fart jokes, whatever, credit jokes, black and white people, different jokes, whatever, Then as I started progressing and thinking, okay, well, wait a minute. They don't seem too deep and that's been done before, or that's not really my mindset on that. When I started writing for what Ty Barnett thinks is funny, period, regardless of what everybody else thinks, that's when shit got way better for me because I'm going to give you a genuine performance. You're not going to see anything I'm making up. The only time, and like if the money is being, like if someone says to me, here's a corporate gig, here's how much we're paying you for the corporate gig. Please stay away from X, Y, and Z. Got it. You're paying me enough to stay away from X, Y, and Z. But if it's my show, I'm promoting the show, I'm getting paid already to promote it. Hey man, I'm telling the jokes I want to tell. That's what I'm doing. So I don't tailor myself or censor myself. I mean, I've had to do it for television, you know, as you guys know, like any time you do that, yeah, you got to tailor yourself and censor yourself for that. But live shows, I don't believe in it only because it's so much more shit that you can be offended by than jokes. Now, and it's so funny. I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't want to get too deep into the politics of it. But part of the thing that I had to say to this other comedian was, let me get this straight. You guys are mad at the dude for making a comedy special that is about an hour and a half, but you don't have that same anger at voting rights. You don't have that same anger at women's rights being taken. How the fuck are you that mad about a comedy special that no one's even going to be thinking about 5-10 years from now? But they're literally stripping your rights right here. So when it comes to the cancel culture, it's weird to me the shit they focus on versus the stuff that they should focus on. So I think a lot of it is BS, but you're right. Some people come into it with a mindset of, okay, what's going to make me angry? And I'm like, then don't leave the house. Just don't leave the house.
All right, now wait, hold on. I'm going to shift gears to football for a second because I'm just thinking about cancel culture. I'm a Browns fan. Should the Browns be canceled? I need to ask. And how about the Bears quarterbacks? Like what?
Listen, dude, and as Ron said, listen, we've been spoiled in Chicago. We have. We've had a lot of successes, so we can kind of look at things now and be like, from a different, that's sad you're dealing with that. That's sad that you have to go through that stuff right there. But I know we also come from a time where we're like, we internalize it. Like our anger is internalized, but we're like die hard with it. We're like, you know what? The only thing I don't do, and I've never even thought about doing, is going to a game in the winter. I'm not staying out. I don't give a fuck who it is. I'm not staying outside in the cold weather. But I don't care who. It could be Jesus coming back to play quarterback, and I'm still not going to wait outside. I'm like, I'll catch it on ESPN. I'm sure they'll show the highlights.
And you know what? Jesus would understand.
I mean, Ty, let's take, for example, Tom Brady, 44 years old, leads the league in touchdowns, leads the league in passing yards. He's the favorite to win the MVP right now. I mean, I know you're 46 right now. I mean, it just shows you the old men can still play ball. You know what I mean? And it's.
Well, you ever see Ted? Did you ever see Ted?
I saw Ted and Ted 2.
Okay, so then you know, and let me tell you something, man. Tom Brady, hey, I don't know what deal he made with who. Fuck.
Yeah, something's going on there.
You know how you want to hate somebody? Like you want to hate what they do. Like, nope, what about it? Tom Brady, there's two people. And you look at their sports careers versus how they are as people. And you can say whatever you want to say about them, but what they do on the court or what they do on the field, you can't say shit. Michael Jordan is one of those players, and so is Tom Brady. Because you look at Jordan, and you will hear a lot of stories that Scottie Pippen is saying nowadays, as you can tell, that Jordan was not the greatest person. You will find a lot of other people that say Jordan was not a great person. But as far as basketball player, hey man, that same person that's told you Jordan ain't shit as a person will whoop your ass if you try to say that Jordan is not the best. Same thing with Tom Brady. He's just great. I remember whatever was it the Falcons? And they played the Falcons and they were up. The Falcons were up.
Falcons were up big at half. Yep.
Yeah, and I remember watching the game, and at halftime, I'm like, fine. And here's the thing: I'm not even a Tom Brady hater. I just was like, oh, good, someone's finally gonna beat Tom Brady. And then by the end of the game, I'm like, fucking Tom Brady, bro.
See, that's the thing about Tom Brady and Michael Jordan. They both have lived in an era where there's been fantastic, like amazing players, and yet they're that much better.
Because sometimes, you know, the term I like to play smarter, not harder, and they're those types of people where you look at them and you say, man, they've learned so much about the game. They've learned that they don't have to do this to still be effective. Instead, they can do this. And I remember in a very small comparison, when I used to actually play it was a LA Fitness in Hollywood where I used to play at. And excuse the background sirens. But I remember when I had the energy to play on both ends of the floor, And I mean, I have lockdown D. Even if my J is not falling, my defense is on point. I would take pride in it, bro. And then after a while, I'm like, okay, I can't guard that person. Let me not gonna guard that person. Let me guard this person. They'll be effective, and I'll pick and choose my battles. And when you look at Tom Brady, hey man, this dude, he is the epitome of winning time. And you would there, even if you're a Tom Brady hater, there's no way in the world you can't agree with that statement. He is the epitome of winning time.
Yeah, and I think once you've won that much, it takes a lot of the pressure off. He's like, I'm Tom Brady, and that makes it almost even easier to win. That's incredible.
It's almost like you look at it like you will not believe that he lost until the next day. You're like, hold on.
Right. That's right.
Sure. Is it still time in the game? Okay, cool. Hold on. We still got time. We still got 1 second left. You never know. Anything can happen.
All right, now Ty, you've been doing stand-up for many years. I always like to ask this, or Ross likes to. We like to ask it together. What's a horrible road story that you had?
Horrible road story. Okay. There was. Okay. So I'll tell you a quick one, and then I'll tell you the worst situation, which actually ended up having a good
end
result. The quick one was I was in Grants Pass, Oregon. This is early on in my career. There's a one-nighter at some shitty hotel. There's a lodge or something in there. And Grants Pass has this reputation, I didn't realize this at the time, for being very clansy. So I'm going to coin that term, clansy.
Clansy, I
like that word, clansy. I got to use that word now, too. Clansy.
So, a little bit clansy in here.
So I get to the gig, and there's this dude who's the host. He's wearing like these overalls, like these dirty overalls, just kind of like, he looks over at me, sees me, and he says, all right, you guys, here's your comedian, and drops the mic on the floor. Like, didn't put it on a stool, not in a thing, drops it on the floor. And me now knows exactly what that was. And me now would have reacted totally different. Me then, I would just picked it up and was like, hey, okay, you guys, I said, on the show, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, doing all this. And I remember at the end of the night, I'm sitting at the bar, and the dude is sitting, because I think I told some jokes about being in the military. I'm sitting at the bar, and the guy's like, hey, man, I just want to let you know, you're a funny dude. And I was like, oh, appreciate that, man. Thank you. He says, listen, I just want to give you some advice. I don't know if you know where you are or anything like that, but you seem like a nice dude. So I just want to tell you this. Don't leave the hotel if you don't have to.
Oh my
I was
God.
like, thank you. And so, long story short, I stayed in the hotel and I left the next day at daylight. The worst story, and I'll try to make this one quick, but this one is I tell this story a lot because it actually helped shape my life. It was early on. I was doing comedy less than a year, and they had a talent competition. At the talent competition, which it was stand-up, which I realized there's a huge difference between just stand-up competition or talent competition. So there's a bunch of different acts, booty shakers, rappers, all different types of acts. The show was supposed to start at 9:30. It didn't even open until 11:30, which was sign number one that it was going to be messed up. So some told me, and I was the only comedian on the bill, the only comedian. And so I'm thinking, cool, they'll put me up early on because there's all these other acts and it's kind of a distraction. No one wants to, because if no one wants to follow titties. Who wants to follow titties? It's like, why would you? No one wants to do that. So they don't put me on first. They put me on towards the end. And by this time, it's about 1:30 in the morning, right? And something told me, some said, Ty, don't do this, bro. Do not go try and tell jokes at 1:30 in the morning after they didn't just seen titties. No, so I said, but you know what? This is part of the business. This is part of what you got to do to earn your stripes. So I said, I'm going to go up. And at the time, I had like a solid 5-10 minutes that was solid. And so I go up and I tell this joke, and it was like theater in a round almost, like the people are very close to you. So I tell the first joke, which now just for the record, the joke normally killed. I'm not even making it up. It was one of my few jokes that I did that would just kill. I tell the joke, a girl standing in front of me stands up and says, "Fuck you." And I'm like, and I didn't know how to react to a heckler. So I said, "Fuck you." And then the host of the show, who was really nice and introduced me, because by the way, he introduced me as, he's like, "Coming to the stage, you seen him on this show. I hadn't been on shit. I hadn't been on a single thing on television, nothing. So that same dude is kind of motioning to me like, "Hey, get this under control." But I'm like, I don't know how to get this under control. I've never had a heckler. I ain't even been doing this a year. So I'm just trying to go back into my act. I try to go back into it. Those same two people stand up and they just start booing. They just start booing, like boo. And then again, the audience sees that I'm not dealing with them, so they start booing. So like I can't have just booing. And when I tell you, surreal moment, it felt like my spirit had left my body, went to the other side of the room, got a drink, and was watching me bomb. Like I could see myself bomb. I could see this happen. And so I just shut the set down. The dude who had just hyped me up and gave me dap, shoulder bumps, and all of this stuff, that same dude wouldn't even look at me when he took the mic back. He just was like, so he's like, "All right, you guys, let's just keep it moving." He wouldn't even, no name, no nothing.
Did you win the contest?
Huh?
You win the contest?
Exactly, right? Funny story. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm walking out,
yeah,
and I'm telling you, I don't know if you've ever seen that Jordan commercial where Jordan's walking out of the locker room in slow motion, and you see the row of people on each side, and they're cheering them on in slow motion. Mine was the opposite.
Getting booed on both sides.
Booing on both sides as I'm walking out of this. I can't stop, bro. As I walk out, so I get out, I get in my car, I'm driving home, and the whole time I'm driving home, I'm like, man, I got booed. I cannot believe I got booed. That's all I kept saying to myself. And then the next thought was, I can't wait to do this tomorrow. And that was the exact moment I knew I wanted to be a stand-up.
You had arrived. Listen, I knew when you said this story was worse than the one that was really clansy, I knew we were in trouble. But Ty, we really want to thank you for joining us. This has been fantastic. Catch Ty live if you ever have a chance. You will not regret it. Ty, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you both. Thanks, you both.
Ty.
I appreciate it. Yep. Peace. We'll talk later. Take care.